We're driving blind today. I have a general outlook on what we're going to be talking about today. I do want to address stop Asian hate and talk about some of this stuff. What I find frustrating is that I find commonality in identifying similar social problems that I have issues with. And that's where it all ends, though. So, I had a question posed to me by a pastor, and he was like, "Hey, I thought you were against racism, but now you don't care." And I was like, so mad. So, I have not changed in any way. I recognize the issues that have happened in America with the black community, and I've done seminars on it at my church, and I hate what's going. I hate the history, and but it's important to know our community have people using the N-word because they listen to rap songs, and it really bothered me. So I confronted, you shouldn't use that language in church, and I don't care how pop it is, and so I have not changed my position. I'm against woke culture, and woke. Were you calling it the woke culture now? And the problem with confronting woke culture is that they care about a lot of the issues that we care about as Christians. Like we are, Christians should be an advocate for women's rights. Christians should be an advocate for, and be against racism, and all of it, right? But the problem is not in the issues. And I think people get deceived. Christians are being deceived by not. If we laid out where all of this comes from, where woke thinking comes from, I think most Christians would be like, dude, that's wrong, and be against it. But the issue is that they're not getting in to the woke culture through the issues. They're coming in through the experience of wokeism rather than the doctrines of wokeism. And so if they saw the doctrines of wokeism, they would be like, I'm out. But they're getting in through the experience of inarguable atrocities. It's like, who can be against an Asian woman getting beat up? It's like, if I don't agree with the formula that you guys have created to identify this problem and the solution that they're proposing, then somehow I'm for Asian women, grandmothers and grandfathers being beat up. Like, obviously not, right? But in our minds, we feel that way. It's like, you don't care. And so I want to just talk about this because my issue is that, and also with conservatives, they use this as a great opportunity to gaslight those issues. They're just like, see, it's all just fake. And then, yeah, black people have never been oppressed. It's like, what the hell? It's like, you're not my friend, you racist asshole. And then women, they've never had it hard. That guy that discovered DNA. He really did. It wasn't that woman. People like that. It's irritating because, just because I'm against wokeism, I'm not aligning myself with these a-holes, right? So,
just enabling wife beaters.
Yeah. So I want to make this video. It's a template, and hopefully we'll do offshoots of this with guests that can speak on the issue. How we can be feminists, but not these Nazi feminists that we're seeing today. There's a stark difference. I want to empower my daughters and my wife to be able to do all the things that God has put in them to do, and I want to, as a man, platform that and encourage that and see that happen, right? and let them shine whatever God has put inside of them and not be limited in any way by the culture. So I'm all for that. But what feminism is today is just it's just atrocious. And that sounds horrible to the progressives out there that may stumble upon this. I don't think so. But nobody cares about this show other than our church. But but I'm speaking about it in light of my kids and my wife. But we'll have a woman on for that particular one, and then we'll have an African American on for talking about Black race issues. I can speak on Asian race issues. I hope so, but maybe I'm not
You're
allowed
white
to.
now.
I'm white.
Yeah, you're white.
Oh, okay.
You're also clergy, which means
I have clergy privilege.
clergy privilege and white adjacent. So you are literally
Oh,
the worst. You have oppressed everybody.
do I count as clergy if I don't have pension and
Yes,
I get
because-
paid less than half of what?
Because you are the head pastor. So you
Oh.
do have power.
Oh, power.
Yeah, you have power.
I think I have power, but my church people definitely don't think I'd have that power.
You
I
have
wish.
power. So
Okay. So let's here we go. I just want to give a template of why I am not for anything woke at all whatsoever. Though I might find the same advocacy with people that are against the issues that they're being proponents of, I am completely against their formulation of the problem and their solutions because they just don't hold up. And I'm straight up believe that it is being weaponized by corporations to create a situation and a model that's been used for. This is not new. Like they've used this kind of model, and it's been around for the last century to weaponize this kind of thinking in order to accrue power and to use people sense of injustice in order to accrue power for political structures. And now in America, it's corporate and political people weaponizing this to divide the masses, get them distracted, and then to take all this power away from the people. And that's not a conspiracy. That's communism. It's why the hammer and sickle should never be flown in America. But here we are. We see it, and but our education system failed. Kudos to these people, man. They're great. And so that's where I am. I cannot reconcile. We can't have it in the church. And so here we go. This is the general structure of it all, right? In the formulation of these problems, and they always have to hit on victims of injustice. They use it as a mascot but then the agenda has nothing to do with those people. And so the template is you have to find an oppressed group, right? So the Marxist formulation in the past was those who had money and those didn't have money. So those who had money are inherently evil people, and those who didn't have money was inherently innocent people in the moral fabric of society. And then so what do is you create the solution. The solution is equity, which is to distribute the wealth from the wealthy class to the poverty class. That experiment is an abject failure in all of human history. Like it's in the last 100 years, it is a failed experiment. It's impossible to create fairness this way. It creates poverty, and we've known that like 99% of the time, unless you have an all-white community like Sweden or like some of these Scandinavian countries that have tried democratic socialism. You have to have a pretty white supremacist group. Like you have to have all white community. Like it really requires a homogeneous community in order to accomplish this. And even those, I wouldn't consider them socialists at all. Like They're capitalists. Okay, and
It's like a mix of both, right?
yeah, it's mostly
Balance.
capitalists, and so okay, so
So you're saying it works?
no, I'm not saying it works. So the problem is like meritocracy is being demonized, where it's we structure everything based on your performance, and so all right, so that's a failed experiment. Everyone should know that. Surprising though, these days people they don't think it's an issue, but I'm gonna assume that people at least know that in this video. They at least know that the experiment of Marxism in its original form failed to accomplish wealth distribution in any way that helped. It actually created mass amount of famine and poverty, and everyone became equal in poverty except the ruling class, which was the government. And so that's how communism was born. Communists then began to weaponize Marxism as a way of taking over countries. Like, they didn't actually believe Marxism. They used it as a way, this is a way we take over. And so we saw it with our country. It's very personal to us. North Korea was mentored by Stalin, and he created the same situation in the north of us, and we see the results. The ruling class, very wealthy. Most of the rest of the country, abject poverty. And so the best way to create wealth distribution and the least amount of poverty in all of human history is a republic. The United States and formulation of the United States is an experiment, and it has been the most successful experiment. And you guys just think about this. We've never done it before. There is no better working solution for a country of this size. The United States experiment has been the greatest tool to, we have the best numbers in all of human history so far, which is the least amount of poverty, the least amount of, and people might be so like, what do you mean? It's like, dude, do you want the kind of poverty from 100 years ago? Or would you like the poverty that is now? Like, I don't like poverty at all. We should keep working towards better solutions. But to blow up the whole thing and then to introduce a, utopian idea that has not been tested is insane. And it's a failed experiment. And so we have the best health, the least amount of poverty, disease, like we've ever had on this planet in human life. Like, there's something to say about that. And to not understand that and to speak pridefully that there's a better way is asinine and stupid. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. So, okay, so this is why I disagree with this formulation, because Marxism has changed it's a new kind of Marxism. They've gotten rid of the idea of basing everything of the have and the have-nots, have those who have money and who don't have money. They changed all of that, and a new Marxist thought came out. And our church read the articles that I sent out and to teach them where it came from. And so I'm not going to talk about that right now. But like, neo-Marxism is to create the idea that socially there are those that are oppressed and those that are oppressors. Those that are in power are essentially oppressors, and those that are oppressed are those that don't have that power. And the way they divide this is based on the history of a country, right? And so you are part of the oppressive class if you historically have power, and then you're oppressed if you don't. And so, but this is where things get really weird, because there's all this contradiction. It's a very, very clean way to think about things and an easy way to think about things, but it's not very, it's not always very true, and it's hard to really parse this out. And so there's a few categories now that are, generalizations. So they'll create, and the issue is where it contradicts the Bible is morality is then assessed by being part of the oppressed class or the oppressive class. And so you're inherently righteous if you're part of the oppressed class, and you're inherently guilty and sinful based on if you are a part of the uh, oppressive, you hold power. So it's riddled with contradiction, and it's very easy to formulate things that way and emotionally fulfilling, but it doesn't hold to the test of reason. And when she used that formula then to acquire solutions, then it gets even more crazier, and it actually creates oppression rather than solve it. This is a power move by there's somebody pulling the strings to use this to take over. Like, it's always to consolidate power. Marxism has no purpose other than to consolidate power to the government and to corporate bodies, corporate elites. So that's what it always accomplishes. Like, this is not a conspiracy theory. That's what they do in China and all these countries that have ever been taken over by communists. Those people live well, right? Not the people, but I'm talking about government officials live, they're balling, right? So North Korea, Pyongyang, lights. Rest of the country, literally dark. Like, they're living back in the freaking, like, they're living like peasant lives from like the 1940s. Like, that's how they live. And so that's what this stuff is used for. So yeah, it will redistribute wealth. It's kind of happening right now with COVID, right?
Like the AAPI stuff.
Yeah, I think and people don't realize how dangerous this is. And but those that don't study history are doomed to repeat it. And so America's history program has just been shot to pieces. And so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to the experiment that is America and to the West. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And so, yeah, the formula is basically attribute the oppressive class and the oppressed class in group identities, and then attribute guilt and innocence based on that, and then create equity solutions, irregardless of the individual's experience or moral performance. And so that's the way it goes. So with every issue that we care about, so like for the top of the list, right? Gender, right? So if you're female, right? Feminism, okay? So the category of feminism, that the great devil is men, and which we call the patriarchy. And the patriarchy, the formulation of patriarchy is not uniform. Like, there's people that describe it, and it's so very sexy to blame everything in that way, but there's reasonable critiques of it that are completely disregarded, because who can argue against the oppression of women? Now, race issues, it's white people, it's white supremacy, patriarchy, white supremacy, right? And then gender, hetero sexual bias, right? Heterosexuals are the oppressive class. And so all the way down the line, you could do this in every issue. And it's identitarian thinking. So guilt is attributed to identity inherently. And so what people will say, though, is like, we're not saying that we hate white people as individuals. We hate that white people have created a system that is advantageous to white people only, right? And so we want to undo the system. We're not against white people.
Yeah, so some people are really anti-white people, though.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's not entirely true. When you get to the solutions, though, so they'll say that we just want to change the structures that support only white people. We want equity, and redistributing a system that works for everyone. And it sounds like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, why
Right?
not?
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And then you get into the brass tacks. It's like, so what do you need change? What are we going to change? What are we going to do about it? And the solutions that they offer then becomes basically oppressed white people. Like it's white people's problem. And then you have like, stuff that's coming out now blatantly. They just say like, you know what the solution is? We just gotta all hate white people. And it's like, I thought you said it's not about white people per se. It's about the structures that support only white people. It's like, I thought that's what was the problem. And they're like, so it's inconsistent. And then so like you could do this with, so the template is, basically imprinted on every one of these issues. And then the problem is that when you do that, like you have all these contradictions. Like you can't, the Bible doesn't do that. The Bible says whether you're poor or rich or whatever, you're responsible for your moral performance. Like being poor doesn't make you a sinner. Being rich doesn't make you a sinner. Now, what I can say that the Bible does say is that if you're in a position of power, your sins affect more people, but you're still guilty of your sins, and you're going to be held accountable for two sins, right? One is yours, and then how it affected the people that you're over, you have power over. So you'll be judged for both of those things. Now, a poor person will be judged more harshly, but a poor person is still guilty of their sins. Like they're not inherently, they didn't sin because they didn't have things or because they were part of an oppressed class. And so the Bible is fair in that way. It's impartial. It's like you will answer to God. Everyone will answer to God. And so you're morally responsible. But you get these policies now, like if you're a criminal and you are part of the oppressed class, then you're supposed to get more favors, right? Just to balance out the fact that there were systems put into place that unfairly, imprison certain people. But there needs to be more caution with that. So, for example, if you went to prison for a drug charge like marijuana, let those people out. Damn it, it's legal now. And so, but during the pandemic, they were releasing violent rapists and criminals under the whole, equity thing under the pandemic to get political points. Those people came out immediately started raping people and doing violent crimes. And so that's all part of this way of thinking that allowed for this to happen. No one said anything that was like loud enough to stop our governor from doing this. So these are the things that are like driving me crazy, because when you have an overgeneralized attribution of guilt and innocence, you can't apply that same principle every place. The same thing that's happening in Baltimore, right, is not happening in LA or, what's happening or in another city or another town. It's like, it's different. The shit that's happening in Baltimore, that is police corruption, right? And the LAPD used to have things like that, but they've reformed a lot. Most of our LAPD is like, they're minorities. Like there's a lot of brown, Asian, black policemen in our police force. And like,
There's actually a lot, I think.
there's a lot, right? So this is what I'm saying. Like when you're saying Black Lives Matter and then you're like, we hate the police, right? And people will say to me, we don't hate the police. It's like, okay, you don't have animus feelings, maybe? Is that what you mean by hate? But like trying to defund them and blame them for all the crime of Derek Crappin, how does that make sense? Like you're blaming the whole for the actions of one. And so well, there's more than him. Okay, let's do the numbers. Out of 100% of policemen in a country with 40 million people, right? Is that right? Do we have 40 million people? Did I just...
In our county?
In America.
No, we have 300 million.
300 million people, even larger. Sorry, 40 million is in LA.
LA, yeah. I think
Yeah.
So it
if
might
you,
be even close to 375 or 300.
Yeah, 375 million people. If you have like 5% of that being corrupt and wicked and dysfunctional policemen, that's a lot. It's a lot. It's enough for like a whole year to see years worth of videos, multiples a day. 365 days a year. If we just put in, out of all the policemen in the country, like and it was just 5% of those law enforcement that were screwing up and doing things like like trigger happy, crazy ass, policemen. We have a lot of material. The majority of policemen are not like that. Why are we expecting, we're expecting perfect, task force, and it's like there's nothing like that. Like there's never going to be. There's always going to be human error and crazy ass people in good things. Like it's just the reality of things. And so the police is like the perfect example, right? Because it's like they demonized police force as slave catching, originated from catching slaves. And so if you wear that uniform, you are basically perpetuating racism. And so all the black people that are in those uniforms in these cities automatically become white people. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Do you know what I'm saying? So in Korea, the police forces also came from, catching slaves. Is that what they originally come from? Is that all that they did? When you create these kind of categories, you try to create this template, and then you use that template across the board in every country, in every place. And then you run into these issues where it's like, dude, this isn't working. Like, how is this a way to identify a problem? And then you have to start jamming square pegs into round holes. Like, you just have to make it fit. Policemen that are black, they're basically white. And then you got to go with, like, if you're basically a black person with power, like President Obama, you're not really black. Obama's really just half white and Kenyan. And then, like, if you have money, it's like, it's not, black power. It's, I don't know what they call it, what Magic Johnson would have. It's like, it's not real money. I don't know. It's like, there's an explanation and disregard for the contradiction.
White institutional corporate money.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's an explanation, right? And so it's like, you find on these contradictions. Asian people, another one. Like last year, we were basically white people that shouldn't say anything.
I remember that clearly.
And then we became this year, like, we became victims that everyone should feel sorry for. And then the real issue, I just saw one of my friends freaked out online, and he wrote, like, what the stats say, right? And he freaked out, and he's, like, putting online, like, he posted a video of that Asian grandfather getting beat up, and then he just went ape shit. He's an Asian dude. He just went ape shit. He's like, can all these black people stop beating us up? And he's like he's like really woke, but he just like had like a meltdown. Whoa. It's a woke dude, but he had a meltdown. Like, can all these black people stop beating up our elderly? And I was like, oh shit, that's crazy that he put that. And I was just like, I need to stay off the internet, right? So, but that's I just saw a video with Jada Pinkett talking with, having a roundtable discussion with Chinese American.
How did you stumble onto that video by any chance?
Facebook. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? I'm Asian, so I guess they feel like I need to see that shit. So they're having this. Yeah, no, it started great. I was like really vibing with it. I was like, wow, this is cool. There was like there was a black woman on there that was like airing out her frustration with the Asian community, and then Jada Pinkett's daughter's defending Asians. And then like this lady steamrolls her and silences her, and then the Asians come on, and somebody I don't like was on there. Dyson was on there, and he's bringing on his verbosity, and like he's talking and he's helping the lady understand. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then at the end it was like, but you know what really the problem is, guys? We need to team up Asians and black people need to team up and fight white supremacy. That was the conclusion of the video, and I was like so disappointed with that. I was like, really? Is that what you guys are gonna do? There was a great reconciliation going on here, community, conversations. This has been going on in LA since the riots, right? So like, I really love that conversation, like hearing each other out, realizing we've misunderstood each other, and validate each other's wounds, and some people still haven't recovered from that. Like our parents' generation, they experienced a lot of this emotionally, and so the children of the parents that have experienced this, we're looking at them like, you guys are so racist, right? And then the kids, like black kid, like Jada Pinkett's daughter, is looking at the older black people and saying, dude, why are you guys so racist against Asians? So the younger generation, we don't have this baggage as much, and but the older ones do. They have like memories and like news clips and stuff like that. So like, yeah, we're gonna take a pause right here. Can we just cut it?
Yeah, we can just cut it. I'll just
Cut
keep it rolling in there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Jada Pinkett Smith. That show ended with blaming white supremacy for why black people and Korean, Asian, Chinese, Japanese, that they have tension because of the white people that put them in that position. Because, minorities, they're going to start in the same communities if they immigrate here. So that's where it ended. And I was like, that doesn't solve anything. Right? And so there's that formulation of ethnic, that's a neo-Marxist assessment of things. And the problem with it is it's riddled with contradictions. And so we see J.K. Rowling having this all-out fight, right, as a feminist with the trans community. And and that's so this is where like she says, if sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. So she's been having this war with the...
She's called a TERF. Have you heard of this?
What's that?
TERF stands TERF, Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist.
There's a category for her now?
Yeah, so that's a very big negative in the woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the contradiction is, so for example, like if a trans woman were to, it's not just for her to compete in a men's division because it wouldn't be fair. So, because it wouldn't be fair for her to it wouldn't be fair for her to compete against men. So she has to compete against women who are naturally going to not be able to compete with her. So there's like high school, track and like college. This is happening right now where trans people are there competing and winning everything. But they won't compete with the men because it wouldn't be fair because the men would have an advantage. But then the women don't have an advantage. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a reason why these sports are gender specific, because like the WNBA team would not do well against an NCAA collegiate team in like the ranked 20. Like it's just not the same.
How could you?
So I believe in equality with men and women, but physicality, men and women are not equal, right? Some women can be stronger and more physically athletic than many men, but on average, right? Men tend to be bigger and stronger. That's why we don't have men and women compete in sports against each other. Like, it's not fair. Like, if the UFC did that or anyone else did that, we would be like, this is horrible, right? Even the same weight class, unless you're Gabby Garcia, she can compete in it with anybody. No, actually, she can't. Like, even with women smaller than her, she gets beat up. So, like, intellect-wise, equal, right? An intellectual position, a woman can do just as much as men. Now, there are certain positions that are more women gravitates toward because of their psychology, predominant psychology. This is all proven, by the way. Everyone's gonna get mad if you're in the woke community, but like this is true. And some men gravitate other professions. So unless you artificially try to like manipulate people not to, uh, they tend to gravitate towards certain professions. So this was tested in the most progressive environments in the world, the most, egalitarian, progressive, feminist societies, without, manipulation. The contrast of what men and women choose for occupation was more stark, which was not what people expected. They thought the more it was culturally accepted and more it was encouraged that women do whatever they wanted to do, that they would gravitate towards, you know, jobs that are, more, uh,
Dominant.
no, they didn't. That was the surprise. The surprise was they thought that they would be more women be encouraged to go into STEM and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and it didn't happen. So in the most progressive societies in the world, women tend to in more numbers gravitate towards jobs that are traditionally more attractive to women. So this was a hard pill to swallow. So that's when the progressives started to say that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics was sexist and racist, and they just started like square peg round hole. They just started jamming things, like they just basically started to say that these things are inherently like oppressive. So it's riddled with contradiction. It doesn't, and the solutions, not only are they asinine, they don't produce results. So for example, like when you try to do equity ends up creating the trans athletes in women's divisions, and then you have like are we as Asians oppressed, or are we white people? According to Harvard, you and I, we have more white supremacy, uh, white favor than white people.
That was like the whole
Harvard
episode,
denies
yeah.
it, but man, Asians brought that lawsuit, so don't tell me that it's not true, because we smart. And they didn't want Harvard to be overrun with a bunch of Asians, because we take over that shiz, right? So now they have what they call, you don't get admission based on, test scores, extracurricular, and GPA. You have based on human interactability. And Asians score the least in human interactability. Did you know that?
Yeah, dude, we're all
We're all stupid.
repressed.
We're all repressed.
For our abusive Asian fathers.
So now we have too much white supremacy. Do you know who else has white supremacy? African Americans. So not Black Americans, but Black people from Africa that immigrate here. So Nigerians have white supremacy too, and they are a specific class now. They're not. They're not traditional Black. They're not considered. There's a word for them. They're like not indigenous Black American, or I forgot what the heck the name is, but there's now a category that is not traditionally Black American. So if you're Kenyan, and let's say you've been here for like 3 generations, like Obama, right? You're not considered a Black American anymore. You're not Black, and so you're not part of the oppressed class. So my question is, like, let's say you have a Black father and a African American mother. Like, do you only have half of the oppression? Like, this is crazy. Like, you can't do this. Like, the problems exist, but formulating the problem like this and creating solutions like this, then you get Elizabeth Warren, who identifies as Native American. So this is like, it just doesn't work. Equity never accomplishes what it's setting out to do, and it just causes more confusion. And so I want to know what we are. Are we white people, or are we oppressed?
I'm pretty pale.
And so they did a great discussion, and but the conclusion was more of this kind of nonsense. And so this is why I have issues with this because, I encourage everyone to read The Calling of the American Mind with Jonathan Haidt. That's really at the psychology of wokeism is victimology. And so people then get gaslighted if they don't follow along. So like Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder, they're African Americans. And they're not Kenyan Americans or anything like that. They're Black Americans. They're scholars. And they are vehemently against this way of thinking, that it puts people back, and it delays the breaking of classism rather than solve it. So the real culprit here is there is an oppressive class, and the way that we need to confront it is together, not based on racial lines. Like white people, black people, Asian people all have to get together and do something about the gaming of the capitalist system. The capitalist system is working fine. It's not a perfect system, but it's the best we ever had in destroying poverty in the world. You'd name something that has better numbers or results, you can't. You will never be able to.
It's because it's never been tried.
Yeah,
Fully.
go try it on an island, asshole, because I do not want to get in a time machine and live 100 years ago even. Like, I'd rather not. This is working, right? So let's make adjustments. But there is a I forgot where I was going now. Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell, and oh yeah. So what we need to do is black people. The issue is not classism. Is not based on race. It's based on political structure. And right now, our political structure works great if it was actually being run. But we have corporations, not just any part, the big ones, the corporate elites. They have gamed the capitalist system and also gamed our politics and creating oppression in this country. So how do we deal with that? Well, we got to make sure that our political system is working better, right? And that we shouldn't be empowering the government to create equity for us, right? There's something suspicious about corporations being so on board with wokeanity, and not wokeanity, well, with woke ideology, because it works for them. They profit off of it. And I it's frustrating because it's like we're empowering, we are distracted with the formulation of this and with the implementation of solutions. It's only serving the people that are creating poverty in this country. So, for example, for black people, the people that create the most poverty for black people in America are Democratic politicians. Like, there's no way to argue that right now. I know that Republicans and Democrats have oppressed black people in the past, right? Okay, I'm not going to deny that history. Though Republicans have been on the right side of that of American history, supporting black people, not to the extent they should have, but they've always been on the right side of history in supporting the black community. But the Democratic governing body has not met with the black, community to deal with everything that they supported in protesting the last year. They have not met with the community. They haven't. Biden hasn't met with them. Kamala Harris isn't even black. Like, she's Indian. And so we've been, this community has been had. They've been duped. And so they used them for political clout, and then they ditched them once they got it. Like, this is what I'm talking about. And where is it? Where's all the pro-go churches right now? Why aren't they calling out the Biden administration? They're not like the hardcore progressives are. But like they're not. They're just like, thank God Biden is in there. And it's like, you guys are LARPing, dude. Like, it's embarrassing. And so the Asian racism thing too is like, where were you guys when we were considered white people? Like, this is not solving anything. What's your solution? What's the solution to this? How are we gonna make, how is it gonna be that us blaming the white community, right? Because they say it's the power structures, but eventually it becomes white people in the solution. How is that going to help Black and Asian relationships? It's like we need to do. We that's something we gotta do. It's like hang out and talk and it's just gonna take time. It's like none of these are non-solutions. And what they do at the end of the day, though, is it continues to empower the same people that are creating the problems. And Nike doesn't care about Asian people. Stop hashtagging us. Stop hashtagging Stop Asian Hate with all your Asian sweatshops, right? Like, it's like not the fact that kind of thing happens, and then we're like so touched that Nike did that. It's like annoying. Like, what the?
What does that accomplish?
I don't understand. I don't understand it. Like, at the end of the day, when you break it down, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't accomplish anything other than emotional, cathartic moments. And the cathartic moments not based on any change. We were around progressives all the time in the denomination, in the United Methodist Church. And one thing I could trust the progressives to do in the denomination was accomplish nothing. That's what I could rely on them to do. I could rely on them to be really loud during political meetings and things like that. They're always there to talk about how the funding that they want and money that they want. They could never produce the money, right? They could never create a church that tithes. Like, they can't do anything. They can't create anything. And so everything that a progressive touches fails to produce anything. And they're good at criticizing. They're good at making these formulaic, presentations, solutions that never produce results. And the issue is because it's far from the truth. You can't do this. You can't make overgeneralized blame of guilt and innocence based on group identities. Like, it doesn't work. And it fails to hold up. And the idea that you could do that, broad stroking it across a country, as crazy as this, like each state is not like each other. Like, there's different issues with every state and every region. And like, even coronavirus response was crazy, right? Like, what the hell does Idaho have to wear masks for? Like, they barely have any cases. Like they didn't need to do what LA was doing. Right? The response is going to be different. It should be different across the state, but why are we federalizing the response? Like, leave it alone. And Trump did the right thing. Let every state decide what they're going to do. And our governors, ironically, the Democratic ones that wanted to be the most safest, had the worst results. People say it's because of densely populated cities, et cetera, et cetera. But other densely populated cities did fine. Way better than us. So they had minorities too. And how do they do better than us? So there's a lot of obfuscation here. In chaos, you can create a sense of you can make anything make sense. But you got to create the chaos. And this creates chaos. And I'm I don't understand why I have to explain this anymore. But I keep seeing people fall into this trap. And I have compassion in the sense that it's not just Christians. It's even pastors and, seminarians, and they're falling into this trap. There's a book coming out I'm going to, buy for our whole church, I think. I don't even know what the book is. It's just the title of it is just so good. And it's going to be on Amazon, I think, in a month or something. It's called Social Justice. uh, Pharisees. It looks great. Okay, Social Justice Pharisees, Woke Church Tactics and How to Engage Them. This is going to be an amazing book, guys. I could already see, like, this guy is going to... I hope there's more books like this. If we had books like this, I could have helped equip the church better. I did my best. I know I talk too much, but... the author is a Puerto Rican. And that has in his family line, all kinds of... A.D. Robles is a Puerto Rican Reformed Christian. His family tree includes African slaves, European slaveholders, slave traders, and Native Americans. All the usual accusations and souls don't work against him and his family. More importantly, he has a knack for teaching biblical concepts in layman's terms. I think I'm going to really love this book. And people need to get educated, because if you're from a communist country, it's easy. You know what this is. But for those that don't have experience with this, it's hard to navigate, because, we are by nature Christians empathetic and wanting to uphold and advocate for the oppressed. Right? So emotion in the experience level, it engages us first, and then behind it imports all this new Marxist nonsense and solutions. And so you have all of this kind of like, yeah, we should take critical race theory, even though it's been proven that it accomplishes nothing. Like there's been studies have come out for a long time. It doesn't accomplish anything to have this. And then also, when you have critical race theory, like, do you only take, so only white people are taking the class? No, they make everybody take it. And it's like, but it doesn't fix anything. So it's just insane. Like now, but then we're systematizing it, and it's part of the curriculum for teachers now and work. Like, it's everywhere. But why is it everywhere? It's already been proven that it doesn't accomplish anything.
It just gets everybody emotionally fixated on it, and they believe that that's the solution, because why would you be against such good causes?
Yeah, and that's my issues. I feel like these causes have been hijacked and the real estate for these causes have now been like, there's no room for anyone else. And it's like, so I just got to be quiet and just do what I do. And I don't like post stuff anymore, because it's like, I'm going to attract the wrong attention. People are going to be like, oh, you're one of us now. And it's like, no, I'm not. I hate you people. Like, I love you as a person, but I hate what you guys say and think and what you guys produce. Like, it's creating so much pain. Like, you can't even imagine the pain that this is causing. And so it's horrible to me. It's horrible to me. It's like, none of this helps people. It's not helping. So people are like, oh, people are traumatized, and so we have to help them. And this is the way that we're going to help solve their problems of oppression and mental health, and etc. But the data shows that it's not helping at all. It's not helping at all. So like the trans issue is really, really painful, because the suicide rate amongst trans people is so high, 40-something%. So how are we helping them? Like, let's go to the most progressive places that accept trans openly, even more than here in California. Let's go there. Do the suicide rates drop? Because it's on the assumption that if they're socially accepted, then this will get rid of this will help their mental health issues, and they won't do this anymore. The problem is, in the most progressive, accepted areas in the world, the suicide rates still hold. It means that we need to look elsewhere. And we're not helping these people at all. Caitlyn Jenner stories and all of this is not helping them. And so upon this false premise, we want to now extend transitions, gender reassignment, hormone pills to children and to babies, and like we're there already. Like people are like, that's not gonna happen. It's like, dude, it's happening. Just to the north of us, it's already there. Like Canada is like another country right now. They're not Canada, or they don't have a constitution like us. It's different up there, but in progressive cities and states in America, this is already a topic of reasonable discussion, which the science, even amongst liberals, don't hold. And it's not based on science, and it's frustrating that people say like it's in the science, and it's like I heard this girl say like the science shows there's more than 100 genders, and how is that science? Like what science? Like science isn't even science anymore. Like it's social like experiments. So this is be careful of this, people. It seems harmless, and then it's not. Then it's not. It has ramifications. So last year's Black Lives Matter marches, I know most of the marches were peaceful, but the people front, at the front of all of this was open Marxists. It was on their website. And people are like, what's the big deal with that? And I'm like, dude, we failed as an education system. And so they were open Marxists. They want the destruction of the country. And it's riddled with corruption. And the Democrats were using it as a political tool. Like they capitalized on it. And then the corporations use it as a capital tool. Like they profited too. And who didn't profit? Most black people. Like they didn't. Not only did their businesses get burned down, and but also they wherever they defunded the police, the crime rate just skyrocketed. More black lives didn't matter. I don't know. I don't know how else to keep talking about this, but this is not working. The tragedy of this is right before the BLM protests, police shooting of unarmed black people was at an all-time low, which isn't a good thing, right? That's not like, oh, that's great. Like it's like that's horrible that still happens. But it's happening in so infrequent an amount compared to 10 years ago, compared to 20 years ago. It was at the lowest we could ever think of. And like things are just getting worse. So in the black community. And how many policemen were killed, including black policemen? Like these numbers are not put out there. So who's putting out these numbers? Who's skewing with the stats so that it keeps this in the reinforcing neo-Marxist thinking? And who's doing it? Well, the corporations are.
The corporate media.
The corporate media is. The people that have as the most to profit off of it are. Who's not profiting from it? The people that they're using to accomplish their goals. So I don't know what else to say. Like one skewing of statistics, for example, is like men are 99, I'm going to be generous here, 99% responsible for all violent crimes. Okay? So that makes it seem like violence is a male problem. But the problem with that statistic is you have to compare that then, but how much of the overall population of males is, participating in those kinds of crimes? That's not 99%. Is all violent crimes, males tend to be the ones committing those crimes. But of the whole, and then the solution, equitable solution is men need to learn how to be more not non-violent and whatever. So we got to we need to bring up our boys to whatever, and we need to teach them how to be more feminine. So that was the solution. It's asinine, because then you can't broad stroke a solution like that to the whole male population, because just because it was 99% of all violent crimes were male doesn't mean that 99% of males are committing violent crimes. Those two things are not the same, because the violent crimes might be like 5% generously, and then of that 5%, right, is the 99% of violent crimes. But 95%, right, they're just regular people. And you know what the irony of that is? We don't need men to be more feminine. We need men to be more masculine. Because the problem with those guys that do that kind of thing, what's common about all of them is they don't have dads. They don't have dads that are involved in their life. They're the ones that turn to criminals. So instead of less masculinity, we need more masculinity. We need more dads to be involved in their sons' lives. You know, one of the major things that was on the BLM agenda was getting rid of the father figure as necessary in the black community, would help heal the lack of fathers in the black community. That was one of their freaking mission statements. I was like, this is insane. We need dads that are involved in their kids' lives. Mentally whole, healthy, spiritually robust fathers. So that they do this kind of statistic, gerrymandering with everything to support this overgeneralizing of social ills. And they use stats like that and percentages like that in order to justify their assessment of the problem. And that's just not. And then the nightmare is then they create solutions off of that. And some people might say, well, why didn't they come up with the bill last year to help, deal with this problem with the police? They did. And it was a black politician, Tim Scott. And he proposed a bill, and it was a bipartisan bill in the past. But because he's a Republican and he put it on the floor, the Democrats didn't like that the Republicans might get a win. So they shot the bill down, and they made racist comments about Tim Scott.
Was that the Oreo comment?
Yeah, that he's an Oreo. He's white on the inside and black on the outside. And I'm sure some white progressive said that to him. And it's like, guys, this is a game of the elite power structure in our country. And not everyone in that power structure is corrupt, but so many are. And the Democrats are corrupt. And a whole slew of the Republicans are corrupt too.
They're all playing along.
They're playing along, and Nike's playing along, and they're the only ones gaining from this. We gotta stop with the wokeism. We have to stop this. It is a game that they're using and playing and dividing us so that we won't wake up and come after them. That's what they want. They are playing us so that we'll stay divided, distracted with each other, distracted with this nonsense, creating solutions that basically put money and power in their pocket. And the whole time, they're just profiting. They're just winning. They're getting more power. They're getting more money. Look at who's made all the money during the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdowns. Who's been making hand over fist? Who's been profiting this whole time? And while we're playing, like we're distracted with each other. And this is like, if we had white people, black people, brown, Asian people all wake up and like, dude, they're playing us. And we come together and we start saying, together, we're like, we're not going to buy that. We're not going to support that. We're not going to support that politician. And we all united against corporatism and classism. Then we would we would change society. And with a country like America. And but in order to do that, we have to unite around something. And so what is it that, and you can't unite around wokeism. It's designed to create divisions. It's designed to. You can't be a feminist and a trans activist at the same time. You can't be, pro Black Lives and then, and then be anti-African. Like all of this is like, it makes no reasonable sense. And so if we're going to solve these problems, we can't go with woke ideology. It's designed. It's neo-Marxism was, I think the originators of neo-Marxism were believers. They're dumb, but they were believers that this needed to happen. But the people employing neo-Marxism today, they are not believers. They're tooling it. They know that it's a tool, a political tool, and a marketing tool that they use to consolidate things for themselves. This has been fine-tuned by communist governments all over the world. And so to not understand that and to be blindsided by this is our fault, not being educated in our school system. And but right now, I wish that at least our community and Christians would at least wake up and start researching and understanding how this works. And so I'm for all these issues. I'm for being anti-racist. Like, who the hell isn't? It's like, who the hell isn't? Who isn't against racism? There are a minority of people, I believe, in this country that are still for racist ideas. Of course, I'm still against racism. Of course, I'm for empowering women. Of course, I'm for, not persecuting anyone with whatever sexual orientation and gender orientation. Just because I believe in the Bible doesn't mean that I'm going to go out of my way to persecute those people. Like, their life is between them and God, and I proclaim the scripture. Doesn't mean I'm going to come into your house and tell you what you can and can't do. I'm not, we're going to be always for the things that, the Bible says that we're going to be for and against sin. But the neo-Marxist formulation, a woke formation of the problem is wrong. They're incorrect and morally wrong. Not only are they incorrect in it's just error, like it's just not correct assessment of things, but it's also morally wrong. And then their solutions. I guarantee you, listen to me, those solutions that come out of neo-Marxist formulations will never solve a goddamn thing. They never solve anything. They never solve anything. Not only do they not solve anything, most of the time they create more problems. They create more problems. And meritocracy is important. I don't care what race or ethnicity you are. If you're going to perform surgery on me or my family, I want to make sure that you graduate at top of the class. And I want that. I don't care what color pigmentation you have on your skin. I don't really care. And so we need to rethink this, and and at the end of the day, I feel like we can't do anything about what's happening to our society. I don't think most of the countries like this. It's just here, LA and the West Coast. I don't know what it is about the coastal cities.
Except for Florida.
Except for Florida. Florida's filled with too many Cubans. They're anti-communist. So, I don't know, man. But I'm really worried about the church. I hope more books like this come out, and that they get it, you know. Did we do a video about talking about the way American politics works right now? We talked about that, right? Subject in one of the videos.
I don't. You mentioned it at present.
Okay. I'm gonna talk a little bit about that at the close of this, I guess. A good way to close it.
Yeah, because we're over an hour. I think.
Oh, we went over an hour with this already?
Like an hour 10.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Even with the pause?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, I'll try to do this real quick. Guys, American politics has nothing to do with conservative thought or liberal thought. They're LARPing. They're just pretending on TV, and it has nothing to do with that. They basically use it as a mask on any bill that they make. Why are these bills like hundreds of pages long? Well, because most of it, on its surface, it's about a liberal agenda or a conservative agenda. But what ends up, when you read the bill, what's in there is corporate, pleasing money interests, money laundering, political money laundering, and to foreign nations. And like, it doesn't go to help foreign nations at all. It helps to, it's payouts, and eventually they'll get it on the other side. And corporate elites basically put these politicians in their pocket by getting them into office, funding their political journey. Unless you get millions of dollars of donations, you can't win an election. So these corporations clamp together, and and the military-industrial complex, weapons sales, all of these groups of people will basically get together and fund a politician, and they'll get into office with a liberal face or a conservative face. But there's this term called rhinos and dinos. Rhinos are Republicans in name only. Dinos are Democrats in name only, and that's exactly what they are. They're only doing it as a brand, but actually they are there to please the people that funded their way into office. And I think most politicians think that that's the only way that they can get into office, so they play along. But ultimately, all they can do is very little once they get there, and they have to, please the people that got them there. And so Republicans in name only, Democrats in name only, are only playing along with those people that vote them into office, but they're really there, and they're really actually on the same team. Rhinos and dinos serve the same people. They are funded by the same people, and they take turns paying them out, and with the look of Republican conservatism and Democratic liberalism, and all of it's a sham. And they're giving the military industrial complex contracts to make more missiles and sell more weapons, and this is the game. And the only way to break this, it might not break. Maybe it'll just keep going like this until Jesus comes back. But if there was a way to break this, it would be have to fix the election system, which we'll make a video about. And then we would have to fix, and get people into office that are funded by people. And then these politicians have to go in there and blow all this up. And Is that possible? I didn't think it was possible until Donald Trump. So I don't see any other way, because, and, he might not be able to accomplish anything. Like, he might be done, all right? But someone like him, I wish that there was a better face to accomplish the same thing he does, what he was doing. But look at what he did. Like, there was no new war in the Middle East the whole time he was in office. He kept saying we're not going to go, and he didn't. He kept attacking big pharma, brought down insulin prices, epinephrine, like everything. He brought drug prices down. They skyrocketed the moment that Biden got into office. Within a month, quadrupled price, right? He got rid of all those executive orders. Trump tried to do too many things at once. He went after big pharma. He went after the military-industrial complex. He tried to nerf everything. And it made peace in Israel. No war means no weapon, less weapon sales. Like, he tried to please a few people, but like he was trying to end the Middle Eastern wars, America's involvement in them. So there's a lot of these things that I don't think people understand. Like, they think that Joe Biden really was pro Black Lives Matter. Like, people really thought that was the solution. Where are you people? Where are all these Christians that said that? Prove to me how he has been a Black Lives Matter president. He hasn't even met with them. So what is going on here? We are being had. That's what's going on. They are using all of this. They could have stopped the riots. They could have stopped all of this stuff, but they used it, and they kept them going so that we can be distracted and outraged, and they kept posing this weird situation where they're saying Biden is the solution and that guy is the enemy, and he's the reason why this is happening. And it's like, how does that make any sense? By image associations. But the reality is that Biden is the opposite. And so we have to be smarter than this. And don't take, when we're looking at social media and internet and the mainstream media news, like, that's the corporate giant. Like, those people are not our friends. They're not looking out for our interests. They're actors. The people that are on those news shows, they're reading lines. They're actors, and they're doing a job. But they don't know what they're talking about. They didn't research it. There's not very much journalism that's happening today. They're being fed lines, and to tell the news in a certain way that it helps the narrative of the people that have the most to profit off of it. So, as Eddie Bravo says, look into it. You got to look into it, and you'll find a lot of things. And get on DuckDuckGo, get off of Google. Diversify your news sources. Go to Epic Times, EPOCK Times,
and look into it.
All right. And by the way, once again, I'll reiterate from my church, we will not allow this crap ever. So I'll have a dialogue with you about it. I'll have that. But we are not going to be advocating this or allowing this kind of books or teaching or anything like this. And this is a decision we've made over the last, with 7 years of study, 2 years beforehand by me, and then 5 years introducing our leaders. And we've made a decision. This is not compatible with the Christian church. Okay, so you can say that I'm a Nazi and a white person, but I really don't care. It's death for your church. So pastors and ministers that may stumble upon this, hey, dude, you guys gotta look into this. Get this book. Get this book. And Social Justice Pharisees, Woke Church Tactics and How to Engage Them. It's coming out next year, January 6th. That's too far away. We need it now, Robles.
Anyways, that's it. Right?
That's it. Let's go.
Good night.
Bye.